Good morning, everyone. Please welcome to the stage the lead broadcaster for the NHRA on Fox, Brian Loans.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 2022 NHRA SEMA breakfast. This is going to be fantastic. It's been a long-standing tradition for us to have this breakfast at the SEMA show. And every year we kind of do something a little bit different thematically. And so this year we've gone the route of what we're calling bald fist, bent rules, and drag strip battles. So we're going to be telling some of the great down and dirty drag racing stories with four really great NHRA legends. So I think we should just kind of get things going by introducing our panel. And this panel is made up of four guys that have a lot in common. They raced throughout the same era. Some of these guys are still very active in the sport. Some of these guys are still big fans of the sport, but all of them made a name for themselves doing incredible things. And the first guy we're going to introduce is one of the greatest crew chiefs in the history of NHRA drag racing. Championships, dozens of race wins. He's in the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame, and his name is Lee Beard.
Get down. Played the call to be the boss.
Joe Amato made his sixth final round appearance at the Summer Nationals. He raced against Gary Ormsby, and Amato went into a giant wheel stand, and Ormsby streaked on for the win.
Speaking of problems from Sears Point, Gary Ormsby wasn't over his in the far lane. A huge wheel stand. The car impacts the wall hard, comes across the racetrack. A frontal assault there. Gary Ormsby destroyed his second car of the year. Miraculously, however, he was unhurt.
Played the call to be the boss.
Ormsby with a huge advantage at the start. And he outran Laurie Johns down the quarter mile of 5:11.
Look at me. Know what to see?
Well, right now we're trying to get some consistency here on race day. I think that's going to be the most critical thing. We haven't been real consistent during qualifying. We lost an engine, and we did run a 505 at 290, but this is a new engine. We're working on this setup. Hopefully we can give him a good car, and he's a good enough driver to take us to the winner's circle.
So, having fun, got money, fun and fun.
Congratulations, Lee. Great job. Well, we couldn't be happier, and it just was a great way to cap off the season for Ormsby Racing. My crew deserves all the credit. They held their composure through what could have been a very disastrous season, but we always kept our attitudes up. Gary's driving was excellent, and what can I say? Here we are, world champions, and won the winner or the world finals. Thank you.
Gary Ormsby, who broke the 490 barrier with a 488 elapsed time at 296 miles an hour.
Can you believe it? The quickest time in the history of the sport at 488.
No, I can't. I mean, I knew it was stout, but I didn't know it was that stout.
And there were a lot of rumors that it was trick magnetos that caused this car to run 290. They're gone, and it runs 296.
I know, it ran faster. What are you going to say? Huh?
That means the tricks that Lee Beard has set around this car are still there.
That's for sure. This car's ran good the last 2 or 3 races, and what he's doing. I don't even know what he's doing, but I like it.
Please welcome to the stage, everybody, Mr. Lee Beard. Thanks, sir. So the second guy we're bringing out really literally needs no introduction. You have a few people in different industries that go by one name, and this guy is Snake.
It's a very, very close race. Don Perdomi flashed across the winner. the Snake Prudhomme, 5.98 seconds.
So the third member of our panel is a guy that I'm hoping most of you are familiar with, and if you're not, you will be very familiar with him by the end of this discussion. He is the 1976 NHRA Top Fuel World Champion, and a guy whose personality kind of personified what drag racing was in its wild and crazy days of the 1970s, King Richard Tharp.
He races Tharp right to the wire, but it's Richie Tharp from Dallas, Texas.
Songs about the night they spent protecting you from me. Someone called us outlaws in some old magazine. New York City posse down like I ain't never seen.
The thing I like the most probably is winning the money and the speed. Probably the speed, because there's nothing like running 250 miles an hour. You know, I like to win, I try to win, and I think you can ask anybody at the races. You know, I mean, I don't like to screw anybody around. You know, it's an expensive man's game, and I'm just lucky that I got some, you know, good mechanics and a good car owner, and we're in there, and we're going to win.
And Tharp smokes his rear tires, but stays ahead of Brooke to win it and go into the finals against John Wavy.
Well, Richie, you ready for the final? I'm ready. You know, he's going to have hell beat me. I'm ready.
Your champion will be. Red lights in the near lane, giving it to Tharp in the far lane. And Wavy apparently doesn't know he races Tharp right to the wire, but it's Richie Tharp from Dallas, Texas, the new Top Fuel champion.
We're in the middle of the song. They got me for possession of something that was gone.
Richard Tharp, there are hundreds of stories that can and have been told about this famed Dallas, Texas driver. He is a former national champion. He is a former world champion. Spotted is racing Doug Verhulis for the right to race Shirley Muldowney, and Tharp with a big lead. Verhulis had problems on the starting line. Tharp drives it all the way through. You could cut the tension with a knife at the starting line as Richard Tharp in the near lane gets set to go against the reigning world champion, Shirley Muldowney. Concentration on the starting line, intense by both drivers, and it is Tharp out first as Shirley loses traction, and Tharp explodes the motor. He holds on to win it. The supercharger hanging off the side of the car, and Richard Tharp defeats Shirley Muldowney for the Top Fuel title.
Please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, the king himself, King Richard Tharp. Thank you, sir. Grab a seat. And there is one panelist left to bring out here. And you know him, you know probably his drag racing school. He's the two-time NHRA Nitro Funny Car World Champion while driving the Chi-Town Hustler. He's going to tell us some good Austin Coil stories today. But maybe most importantly, this is the guy that trained Tony Stewart to go drag racing. Tony Stewart, of course, made his drag racing debut at the Las Vegas Nationals or the Nevada Nationals just last weekend, making it to the final round of Top Alcohol Dragster. And this guy made it happen.
Frank Hawley has been dominating. And another blistering 6.07 for Frank Hawley as the Chi-Town Hustler picks up nearly $20,000 at a Gator Nationals championship. And he's giving Hawley a run for the money. It is Hawley by just over the car length.
I usually feel pretty relaxed in the car, and for something particular like this final round, I'll have to make a concerted effort to fire myself up.
Frank Hawley pulls away to win at the end. So Frank Hawley, who had been the number 2 qualifier in the division, beats the number 1 qualifier to win the race.
And he'll smokes the tires. Frank Hawley blasts through the quarter-mile narrow win, and the entire crew celebrating the victory by Frank.
Frank Hawley wins his second Top Fuel national event. And Frank, you would not be hurried on the starting line. Even though he moved up each stage, you just did your own thing.
Well, maybe that comes from a little bit of schooling. I mean, you just can't. Eddie's been doing this for so long, and he's the kind of guy that's going to do something like that, and I sure as heck don't hold it against him, because he also knows that I probably wasn't going to change my mind on my routine. But I'm just so excited for Coors and for Daryl and all the other sponsors and people that have stuck behind the team. It's almost a relief to have won another race, because this car is so good. I think it should have won 3 or 4 throughout the season, but maybe we'll do that next year.
Welcome Frank Hawley to the stage. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here this morning. So, I want to kind of dive right into it, because these 4 guys are just a wealth of stories, and I want to start with the guy on the end over here, Lee Beard. You know, we saw some great footage from the famed late 80s, early 90s seasons with Gary Ormsby. But there was one particular moment in time, especially I believe in the 89 season, where a piece of laundry caused an amazing amount of controversy in drag racing. We want to talk about the terrible towel. What was that all about?
Well, it was a diversionary tactic. What had happened at the end of the 88 season, we started making some real wholesale changes to the car and the engine combination and everything. Came up with a real powerful combination to take us into 89. But the one thing that we had was we had worked with a guy that was an engineer at Jet Propulsion Laboratories, a guy named Pete Jackson. And he had made this metering valve, or barrel valve they sometimes call it. And what it does is it gives the fuel delivery to the engine. And this thing delivered the fuel at a much faster rate than anything that was on the market. And it took Ormsby's reaction times from not even being in the top 10 clear to the very front, and by a long ways. So the first time we stepped on the throttle with this thing, we were like, whoa, what are we gonna do? We wanna keep this thing and not have the other teams get it. So it's kind of hard to hide it because it hangs up on the side of the injector where the butterflies and stuff are. We thought, let's make a diversion here, and we put a towel over the throttle pedal. And we had no idea of the ramifications that were going to come by having the throttle pedal covered up. All of a sudden, people started talking about this trick throttle pedal. They thought there was a button on the steering wheel that had a air cylinder that opened the throttle. There was so much speculation, and we got a big laugh out of it, because we would see guys like Jim Head. He's coming, he's looking into the driver's compartment, and the barrel valve, the magic part, is right here next to his head. And he's trying to look in at this throttle pedal. And God, we were biting our tongues to keep from laughing out loud. Ormsby dominated the reaction time in the first 3 or 4 races, and all of a sudden the racers started trying to put stuff on their throttle pedal and open it rather than with their foot. So NHRA, they wanted to see what we had. We were at Gainesville, we make a run. They meet us at the end of the track and they escort us back to the pit. They said, we want to see what's under this towel. So I lined the NHRA inspectors up alongside the trailer and I said, look, I'm going to show you this thing without hesitation, but you got to make me a promise. What you see, you cannot tell the other race teams. So we take the cowling off, and here's the throttle pedal with the green towel over it. And I pull it off, and the inspector, Jim Collins, looks at it, and all there is just a standard throttle pedal with a cable to it. And yeah, it was so much fun. They actually started making rules about the throttle pedal after that.
But it was a great, great diversionary tactic, and that's why I love it so much. And I remember as a kid that every month you'd get the drag racing magazines, and there'd be people writing they couldn't figure out what was going on, and the fact that it was hiding right there in plain sight. How long was it before somebody figured it out?
Well, I think actually Pete Jackson wanted to make a little money off the project, so eventually the word got out.
Yeah, it took about a week.
Eventually the word got out, but we had a lot of fun with it, and the entire season itself. You go through a career, 35 years plus, and you have real standout races that you remember winning Indy 3 or 4 times, and that '89 season really put myself on the map and Gary Ormsby on the map, and to dominate the season, win the first race, get in the points lead, never be out of the lead, crash 2 cars along the way, and still end up winning the championship. It was one of those kind of seasons that everybody dreams about in their career.
So Snake, as we stay on the same kind of diversionary tactic topic.
I didn't cheat. But go ahead.
Well, neither did he, right?
I know where you're going.
I know, yeah, you know where I'm going. And actually, before I go there, let's take a look back. The 1982 U.S. Nationals are special for one very specific reason. Let's watch this.
The difference in times between the 2 nitro-burning classes continues to narrow, as Don Prudhomme proved in funny car qualifying with an all-time best of 5.63 seconds. If he had been racing in top fuel, Prudhomme would have qualified number 4. At the beginning of today's competition, no one has forgotten Prudhomme's performance, especially Kenny Bernstein. He was matched against Prudhomme on the record-shattering run, recording a respectable 5.90 seconds himself, while Prudhomme logged a 5.63.
Coming into the U.S. Nationals, people were talking about maybe a potential of a 5.70 with a funny car, but a 5.63, they had to check 5 different clocks to make sure it was right.
Yeah, I know, it's awesome. It's hard. If I was back home and I heard this was going on here, I wouldn't believe it, but I'm driving the car, and I'm here to tell you the car's doing it. It's an incredible racetrack. It always has been here, and it ran a 73 and come back with a 63.
Dale Paulding had the dubious distinction of trying to stop Prudhomme in round number 1, and he lost traction going up in smoke and crossed the center line right at the start. Prudhomme marched into round number 2.
So that 5.63 run came at a race that was known for the fact that a lot of funny car guys were running nitrous oxide on their cars.
Yeah.
And you kind of wanted to play into that, but my understanding is you didn't actually use nitrous oxide in the car.
Well, we had the same similar situation as Lee Beard with the Pete Jackson barrel valve. It was a change. The barrel valve really changed racing fuel cars, I think, and so we got a barrel valve from Pete, and then we came on to some other good stuff. We had a compression situation, and we had a vane fuel pump. So it was a thing Bob Brandt and I were working on. And we knew we were going into Indy, and we had just raced a match race, which, by the way, that's what we used to do a lot, is just match racing, not national events. But we'd run these match races and tune your car. It was like testing, but you got paid. And we came on to some really trick shit stuff. And we got to Indy there and said, what are we going to do to distract these guys? Because we knew that the car was going to just haul ass. I mean, there was just no way about it. So Bob Brandt had the idea, well, let's hook a nitrous bottle right up to the fuel pump. There was a little line sticking out of the fuel pump. And anybody that knows anything about nitrous knows that you don't blow it right into your fuel pump. You would seize the pump up, which, by the way, a lot of guys did at the track. They were seizing their pumps up, turning this valve on. So anyhow, we ended up setting the record and did all kinds of stuff. And there was absolutely no nitrous in the system, but it would deter, you know, everybody thought there was. And it was a similar story to Lee Beard. I think we've all had these little tricks that we've done on our cars, but yeah, there was no nitrous on it, but it was a fun weekend.
And that 563 certainly had them all talking. You heard Dave McClellan say if you'd been running top fuel, you would have qualified fourth.
Yeah, but we were killing a lot of parts too. That was in the beginning of killing parts. So we couldn't feed it enough parts in the pits to keep it going. So we went through about 4 engines at that race.
Good times. It's about the same way it goes today, depending on how the weekend is.
10-4, yeah, the way they blow them up now, man, this is like amazing. I just can't get over it watching TV and seeing how these things are stressed to the max. But they seem to be enjoying it, and cars are going fast.
Going real fast. Richard, we're going to go back 1 year after the 1982 Indy race for Snake. We're going to go now to the 1983 Spring Nationals, where you and, well, let's just say a not-so-friendly rival got into it.
Well, it was me and Shirley, you know, and we had it from the beginning. We just, you know, my big thing with Shirley was, you know, she weighed 100 pounds, and it was kind of a weight deal, you know. And we spent.
You don't weigh it now. Go ahead.
What'd you say?
I didn't say nothing. Go ahead. Just slip it.
What did you say?
Shouldn't weigh that much now, or in somewhere in that vein. I'm a dead man.
You didn't hear that. But go ahead. Either do I. But go ahead.
Well, I don't know what I was saying, you know. I just, you know, she's kind of had a claw on me, you know. I didn't like her, and she didn't like me, and we just didn't get along.
One guy you did get along with that didn't so much get along with this guy is your pal you lived with that pulled a knife on Snake. Tell the story about JL.
Oh, there was this guy, this was in 1963, and Snake come down the Green Valley, and it was just everybody was there. And this J.L. Payne drove for Vance Hunt, and he was a big guy, he liked to fight and everything, but he always carried this knife, and everybody was scared of that knife. And him and Snake run the final, and JL red lighted, and Snake won. So they get down there, and JL tells Snake, so, you know, I don't know exactly what he said, but, you know, let's run it again. And he was driving the Greer Black and Perone car there, which was just unbeatable, you know. I mean, that car run, I think it run like 260 rounds of racing and lost 34. Now, you tell you, you know, it was just unbelievable. Anyway, so Snake said, sure, you know, we'll run again. So everybody was scared of J.L. Payne and his knife, but everybody didn't know that knife only cut one person, and cut J.L. trying to get it out of his pocket one time.
Hey, but that's a true story. I was scared to death. I was about 18 years old. And these Texas boys, man, we were California guys. We got down there, they greased us up. The Texans, man, they were tough. And that one guy I was talking about, his name was J.L. Payne. He was about the baddest dude there as a driver. And sure enough, he had a knife down in his boot. And we got down to the end of the quarter mile, and I wanted to run again. And he reached up and got his knife out of his boot. And I said, well, that's the end of that conversation. So we smoked it back to the pits and loaded up and went back to California with our tails between our legs.
Frank Hawley, again, thanks for being here this morning. And you know, we were sitting around backstage talking about a bunch of different stuff. And I mean, we can go any which way you want. We can talk about food. We can talk about the immigration officials. We can talk about whichever direction you feel like picking this up at.
So we're going to start with a Don Prudhomme story to kind of set the stage. I went to my first drag race when I was 9 years old, absolutely fell in love with it. That's all I wanted to do my entire life. When I was a kid, I had pictures of Don Prudhomme and Tom McEwen and Tommy Ivo on my bedroom wall. And through a lot of fortunate circumstances and a lot of hard work, one day I got a call, and I've got another story about that, but Austin Coyle and driving the Chi-Town House Tour. So fast forward a few years, it's the first year we're running for the NHRA World Championship. 1982, we go into Indy, we're leading the points. First time they ever had the Big Bud Shootout. It was the biggest, highest payout ever in drag racing history. We get to the final round, we got to run the 560 car, which we never thought he was cheating or doing anything unusual. It just shows you how screwed up everybody was back then, that the cars were so far apart, and now they're really tight. So anyway, we go into the final round. My heart's beating. I'm racing my childhood hero. I just gotten married that year. My wife was there. My mom and dad, I've got some stories about them, supported me. We run good. His car falls off a little bit. We win the Big Bud Shootout, first one ever, highest paying race of drag racing history. In the winner's circle, it was a very emotional moment for me. My dad was a tough guy. He had World War II veteran, was in the Royal Navy, destroyer going across the Atlantic, Wolfpack submarine shooting ships. I'd never seen him emotional or a tear in his eye in my entire life. And in the winner's circle, my dad's standing over there after we beat Snake, and he had a tear. And that was probably the most emotional moment in life. But there's always a backstory to this. So, born and raised in Canada, in 1982, I was still a Canadian citizen and driving for Austin Coyle. We are in qualifying at the U.S. Nationals. Somebody comes into the trailer and says, there's two guys out there and they're in suits. Now nobody's got a suit on a drag race, so this has to be money. So I haul ass out there. I'm thinking, we are so good, we're so cool, these must be potential sponsors. And they flip out their badges and they're federal agents. They're from the INS. And they said, you're a Canadian. Yeah, and I said, are you supposed to be? Anyway, they take me, put me in the back of the car right during qualifying, take me downtown to the office. They put me in this little room, they got the lights and everything on, and they're interrogating me. Now on the way down, I'm thinking, wow, this could be a real problem because I'm not supposed to be living in the United States yet, and so I'm trying to make up some stories, and I realize I've got I had an apartment in Chicago. I realize I've got some receipts in my pocket that have I don't know the bills for my apartment. So I have to get rid of these things, and so I start eating them. And, now I'd heard, I don't know this, but I'd heard that other people that wanted to keep stuff away from federal agents had ate it too, and I thought, well, maybe this will work too. So I'm literally eating these receipts going downtown. I get there and they're, so do you live here? No, I live up in Canada. Still had a driver's license with my mom and dad's address on it, so that was good. And do you make any money? Hell no, I don't make any money. I do this for fun, as like working for Austin would be fun. And I said, no, this is just a hobby. I live in Canada. I come down. They don't pay me anything. And so I'm there for like a half an hour, just scared to death. And finally, they tell me you can go. They just push me out the door. I call a cab. I get back. And we go to the final round, Big Bud Shootout, win it. Now, I've told these guys, swore up and down I don't make any money. The next morning, the front page of the Indianapolis Patriot has a picture of me standing there holding this big cardboard check, and it says, pay to the order of Frank Hawley $25,000. So that was a little bit of a problem. Now, good things can come from bad things, and that day I met a guy NHRA sent over, an attorney, wicked, smart, aggressive young guy, and his name's Russ Dean. Maybe some people in the room here have heard of Russ.
Oh yeah.
And Russ is a fixer. And Russ told me, he said, you don't need to worry about it. He said, I will take care of everything. And he did, and we went on to the next race. So that was my my big Bud shootout story against Don Prudhomme. Best race I ever had in my life.
That's pretty fantastic. Good thing they didn't throw you out.
Good thing they didn't throw me out.
Lee, I want to go to a more modern moment here, and you know, things get heated at the drag strip sometimes. Sometimes tempers flare up, things boil over, and well, you and John Force had a pretty notable run-in a while back. Let's watch this.
And this guy gets a satisfaction. We're talking about Lee Beard. Thinks it's cute. I told him, start with me. Well, you always do long burnouts, and you're late. We don't do long burnouts. Is he out here racing it? Does he notice that we don't do long burnouts? I don't get mad very often, but I'm hot as a fox right now.
What I've noticed is that anytime you're a threat to that organization, performance-wise, then John goes into this hysterical madness type of person.
To say the least.
So what the hell happened?
Well, I don't know. You know, throughout my career, I just had a knack for pissing
people not liking it.
Snake didn't like me. Believe me, we had some
Still don't.
heated conversations. But
Still doesn't like you.
anyway, with Bazemore there in 2001, it was my first year of racing funny cars. I'd raced top fuel my whole career. And we really got onto a combination about halfway through the season that could dominate. I mean, the last 11 races, we qualified number one nine times. And so Force and Coyle, you know, they were used to being at the top, all the media attention, everything on them, and all of a sudden here is Beard and Bazemore in the spotlight. And they just did not like us, and we didn't like them, and we had many heated arguments, and you know, they were great competitors, and we were just happy to be there in the same league with them.
That video to me is interesting because that was at the top end of the racetrack, and a crew chief is normally not at the top end. Why were you down there in the first place?
Well, I always went to the top end.
Okay.
At that time, you know, we still really listened to the driver's input after a run, and so it was nice to be there as soon as they got out of the car and listen to and hear what they felt in the car, where today, you know, it's all a computer video game thing.
And there was another kind of bit player in this story that had a, I don't want to say either an offensive or defensive maneuver with the body pull in the car.
Well, we were at here in Las Vegas, and it was during a qualifying run, and Bazemore and Force, when they raced each other, neither one wanted to stage first. And so Bazemore said, listen, I'm going to put this guy in there first. And during a qualifying run, and they're sitting there with the pre-stage light on, running. The crowd's is clapping. The starter's throwing his hands up in the air. They finally go in, but they had run so long that there wasn't enough fuel in either car to make the finish line. They blaze down through there. They both blow up about, 1,000 feet out there. The cars are coming around the corner at the shutdown area, both smoldering and stuff. Bazemore gets out. Robert Hyatt was a crew guy on Force's car. He grabs the body pull and gives it a baseball bat swing and hits Bazemore right across the chest. Both crews jump in there. It's a giant brawl. And you know what? What was cool was it was a real rivalry. It wasn't a made-up thing. The announcers didn't build it into anything. It was a real, true, we hated them, they hated us.
And there was no hugging and kissing down at the other end.
No, sir.
Like they do now.
Right, that's a problem, Snake. I'm with you.
Yeah, they get out of the car down. God, I'm sorry, I beat you. No, it's okay, Joe. Shit, back then we wouldn't even talk to one another. You get down at the end of the quarter mile and you didn't lose, or you lost the race, brother. You weren't in any kind of great mood to congratulate the guy that beat you. So that went on for years.
I want to bring up a name of a guy you know, guy from Texas. You kind of like lived the good life in the 70s, man. You personified kind of what the sport was all about. This guy might have even been crazier than you. How about a guy named Johnny White, funny car racer known as the Houston Hustler?
Johnny White.
Yeah, he was pretty crazy. He just didn't care about anything. He had, he was sold some funny things, and he was on the funny things most of the time, and he was out there.
Yes, he was, and then I think he was in there for a while, if you know what I'm saying. But yeah, Snake brought up something that he wanted to clarify with you this morning, which was, what was your track record with the Hearst girls back in the day? Because he heard you're nearly undefeated with making friends with the Hearst girls back in the day.
6-0.
Well, Linda used to bring around all these Hearst girls, younger girls than her, and I mean, it was like feeding, the lions, But Thorpe was right over there. He had all the new Hearst girls that come to town. He was dating them.
Let's get
It was also the Winston girls. Remember them?
Oh yeah. No, I don't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, you remember them. I remember them. I remember them with you.
Hey, we were young and crazy, man. We didn't know. In those days, you didn't know if you'd come back alive or not. So it was like going off to war.
Speaking of young and
The only
crazy,
excuse I got.
let's take a look back at this guy, Richard Tharp, in the 1970s. This video right here about Richard totally personifies this from a film called Wheels of Fire.
Oh, yeah.
Richard Tharp. Richard, the race driver.
Yeah.
Richard Tharp has come a long way from the streets of Las Cruces, New Mexico, through midgets, through funny cars, to the World Championship in Top Fuel Eliminator.
When he was 4 or 5, maybe 6 years old, you knew he was going to race something, Or I knew I was going to race something. We raced little bitty cars, and we raced tricycles, bicycles, motorcycles, and then we went into the cars.
What do you want to do?
Nothing.
Nothing? Well, you're as close to it as anybody's been.
Yeah, well, I just like taking it easy and having a good time, playing. That's it.
What do you do for fun?
You name it, I'll do it. Anything. I just like to have a good time. I mean, we have a lot of things we do,
There's been a story going around for years. One time you got in a contest, an eating contest with somebody, and you actually ate a live baby bird. Is that right?
No. The guy that won the contest ate the live baby bird. I stopped on the goldfish.
After his long losing streak, Richard Tharp seems to have it together. He qualified at over 243 miles an hour in the Candies and Hughes car. If Richard wins this race and goes on and does well in Indianapolis, he still has a chance of winning the championship. Richard Tharp wins it in an incredible 5.94 seconds. And Richard Tharp wins again, 5.93 seconds, his speed over 246 miles an hour. What an incredible comeback to Tharp after his mid-season.
Typical Richard.
right, so who were you with in the hot tub?
Oh, that was a girlfriend of mine.
Perfect. Not a trained actress?
Eloise.
Name's
Eloise.
Dallas Cowboy cheerleader.
Frank, we got to talk about Austin Coyle, right? And Austin Coyle, the crew chief of the Chi-Town House, where you took that ride over, and my understanding is it was kind of an icy beginning. Like, you and Coyle weren't just like super pals when you first got in that thing, or maybe ever, I don't know.
So he clearly gave me my opportunity. I'd raced bad top fuel cars for a while and a lot of alcohol funny cars, got a chance to drive for Austin. I actually had slept in my truck, was homeless in Southern California for about 6 months, out there trying to get a job, not driving, just working on somebody's car. Finally realized that wasn't going to happen, so I thought I would head back to Canada. A friend of mine, Simon Menzies, was general manager at Simpson at the time, and he told me, he said, hey, Pete Williams at Chi-Town Hustler he's quitting, and you ought to see if you can get that job. And I thought, nobody's going to hire me, you know, this kid from Canada in a car like that. So he said, give it a shot. So I put a resume together, sent it to Austin, and never heard anything, because this is snail mail back then. I'm driving back home. I stop in Denver in a snowstorm. I call back to my mom, collect. There's got to be people in here who know what a collect phone call is. And she said, yeah, this guy Austin Coyle just called and said he wants to talk to you. I said, oh my God. So I go into my pickup truck because I have no money, and I get all these quarters together, and I call Austin, and we talk for 15 minutes, and he said, why don't you come to Chicago and we'll talk about maybe driving the car. And I was trying to act cool up until that point, and I was saying, well, you know, I'm kind of weighing my options. A lot of people want me to drive the cars, and I didn't tell them I slept in my truck for the last 6 months. And I'm looking, I got like 5 quarters left, and I thought, man, I have not got much time. I have to fess up. And I told him, listen, actually I'm homeless. I'm staying in a phone booth in a snowstorm in Denver, and I haven't got any money, I can't stop and talk about driving the car. If you will give me an opportunity to drive one race, the first race of the year, match race, whatever, I'll come there, I'll work on your car all winter for nothing, just let me drive the car once. He said, okay. So I get to Chicago, and I go to the shop, talk to him. I have no place to stay. He says, well, you can stay with me. I said, all right. So we go, and he has this pretty ratty little apartment, 2-bedroom apartment in the south side of Chicago. And we walk in the evening, and as he walks in, he goes, oh God, the Cayman's out. I said, the Cayman's out. Is that code for something? What the hell does a Cayman's out mean? And so does anybody here, put up your hand if you have any idea what a Cayman is. Oh, good. Okay. So if you didn't put up your hand, if you looked at an alligator and a Cayman, you cannot tell the difference. Okay. So he's got an alligator, and this is not like a Cayman. This is like a Cayman. This sucker's 4 or 5 feet long, and he keeps it in this big giant aquarium. And it's got plywood over the top, and their entertainment, this is what kind of folks they were back then, is weekends they weren't racing. He would get some friends over, and they fed it live rats, and they would bet on how long it would be before it killed the rat, which I understood is like it's in seconds. It's hungry. So anyway, he says, the Cayman's out. I said, where is it? He said, I don't know. Often it hides behind this couch. So we go over, and he pulls the couch out. Sure enough, here's this 4 or 5 foot long gator up against the baseboard at the bottom of the wall. And he says, oh, we got to get him and get it in. I said, I'm not grabbing that thing. And he says, yeah. He says, so here's the plan. He says, you go for the head, I go for the tail. I said, the head? Why do I have to grab the head? I said, why can't I get the tail? He said, it's safer. I said, dude, it is not safer to grab the head of an alligator. And he said, but you got it. And he says, so I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, I ought to just leave. And I really want to drive this car. And Austin's told me I got to do the bottom end, the clutch, pack the chutes, do the fuel, drive the race car, and drive the truck. And if this thing bites one of Austin's hands, I'm going to be doing the top end too. So I decide I'm going to help him. So we go in and grab this thing, and we fight it and get it back in. He puts the plywood back on top, and a couple of these cinder blocks up there. And apparently his wife Barbara hadn't put the cinder blocks on, which is why they came. And he's just as calm as heck, and he's like, okay, let's go to bed. So I go into the spare bedroom, and I'm like wide awake. I got the sheets up here, and I can't see. Now, do you remember when you were a little kid and you used to talk about like maybe like the boogeyman under the bed? But forget that. How about considering there could be a live alligator actually under your bed? So anyway, I didn't sleep all that night. Got up in the morning, called one of my best friends, Al DiPozo, asked him if I could go up and stay with Al. And Al let me come up and stay at his place for 2.5 years. He had a really nice house up in Northbrook, very affluent neighborhood. And one quick Al DiPozo story. So when I went there to Al's, he said, I said, well, I want to pay you because I'm actually getting paid now. And he said, no, you can't pay me anything. He said, but you cut the grass. And he had a big 1.5 acre place and a little John Deere tractor. He said, you got to cut the grass. So I said, okay, I'll take care of the lawn and pay me for it. Fast forward a year or two, we won the world championships. I'm getting paid. I'm flying into the races now. And I went to Al. I said, listen, I don't want to do lawns anymore. I said, I just got to pay you. Like, I really like staying here. Got along good with his wife, Gail. And he said, no, you cannot pay me, and you have to cut the lawn. And I said, why? And he says, let me tell you something. He said, I could hire somebody to cut that grass. He said, but to sit there with my buddies in the afternoon and watch the current NHRA world champion cut my grass is priceless.
That's a good one. I want to show you guys a photo, and it's a racer that all of you have had either been on the racetrack with or worked with. That photo right there. And we can get it up on the large screen here. So this is a discussion being had.
That was at the finish line.
Yeah, it was. That's, of course, you got Ed the Ace McCulloch on the left side, and that is Gordon Mineo, whose face is in the process of being rearranged. So Ed McCulloch is a famous photo, of course. Ron Capps ended up putting it on T-shirts a few years ago, and people run around with him. But I wanted to get kind of 4 impressions of Ace, and you worked maybe closest with him, Lee, when you guys were running the McDonald's cars.
Yeah, I had a great time with Ed McCulloch. You know, it was the first year of the McDonald's team, and we kind of got off to a little bit of a slow start. We actually got the funny car, Cruz's car, running up pretty good early on.
Yeah, Cruz's start was awesome. The first 2 races, he hit the gas and it blew the rods out the bottom of it, right? And then they brought you over to help out. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, you know, Ace had won Indy like 5 times with the funny car, and he's in this Top Fuel dragster now, and we called him a rookie because he hadn't really won much in a Top Fuel car. We get to the U.S. Nationals, biggest race of the year, and end up winning the race with both cars. McCulloch was like walking on cloud 9. Afterwards, we all went to this little pub, Union Jack's, and had a party that lasted at least 4 or 5 days. But I truly enjoyed my time with Ace. Throughout my career, you got to understand, I had worked for the best teams out there and the best drivers. Think about it, guys like Gary Ormsby, Ed McCulloch,
Pat Austin,
Kenny Bernstein, Pat Austin, Whit Bazemore, Antron Brown. Just very fortunate to have worked for those teams, those team owners, and those fantastic drivers.
Snake, as a certified badass yourself,
Yeah.
you can respect a fellow badass, right? Was this one of the toughest guys?
The toughest. Yeah, I stayed out of his way. One time at the U.S. Nationals, one of his crew guys came over to borrow something, and I wasn't in much of a mood and ran him off. And then next thing I know, here comes Ace looking about like he does in that picture. He says, now if I asked you for that part, would you loan it to me? And I said, hell yes. Go right in the trailer. But I mean, he's a big son of a bitch, man, and he liked to fight. He just absolutely loved fighting. I don't care if it's a spectator or whatever it is. He'd knock you out in a heartbeat. I've seen cops jump on him in Bakersfield, and he got thrown in the back of a squad car. But we used to have a great time like that.
You got any good ace stories?
I don't really have a good Ed story. He's a real great friend of mine, but I just have one thing to say: don't piss him off. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
he was bad.
He's a great guy.
What about you, Frank?
Well, I avoided all of this type of activity as best as I could. I think
Frank wasn't a badass.
No.
Look at him.
Frank was quiet and polite as best he could possibly be, because actually, that's kind of my nature, but I had such respect for all these guys that had raced before me. And really, one of my main goals when I was younger in the alcohol cars, by the time I got to work for Austin, I was actually getting paid. But most of my racing career, I was starving to death, literally. And food. If you would think maybe clutches, tires, motel room, stuff like that would be your food. Food was at the top of my list. And I didn't have any, and I didn't have anything to give to my friends. And so when I'd left home, my dad gave me an ESSO credit card, and not many people will know what an ESSO card is, gasoline credit card. And back then, the convenience stores weren't like they were now, where you can go in and basically feed yourself, and they had gasoline and oil. So I needed cash, and so I would sit in a parking lot. And when somebody came up, I'd go up to them and tell them, hey, can I buy your gas for you? And I'll give you like a 50% deal. Like, you put $20 in your thing and you give me $10. And I found out something about human nature. You got to go through about 11 people to get one taker on a deal like that, because they think, and I got my ID and everything, and then eventually, so I get the $10. If we ran a little match race thing, which we ran with our alcohol cars, a lot of stuff, we wouldn't leave early. We would wait till everything was done. You go over to the convenience, or to the concession stand, and they would have hot dogs that they didn't sell. And they had them in little foil wrappers, so we would get as many hot dogs as they had left. We'd put them on the intake manifold of the truck, get lots of ketchup, drive down the road for about a half hour, get out, take the hot dog out. That was dinner. When you weren't racing, you didn't have access to that. And our goal, and I had a couple of idiot kids that just they thought this was fun, and they hung around with me. God bless them. But our goal was not to have a culinary experience. It was to not be hungry anymore. So what we discovered is that a lot of grocery stores they can't do this now anymore. There's regulations. God, I love regulations. But as long as they're NHRA regulations, they're great. They used to sell day-old donuts, and you could buy a dozen donuts for 25 cents. And so we would go to the grocery store and buy a dozen day-old donuts, and of course water's free, and you could you could eat 10 donuts and wash it down, and you weren't hungry anymore. But what we found out, and we did that a lot, but what we found out about the donut diet is does anybody remember those old Black Flag commercials about the roach motel thing? The roaches go in, but they don't come out. Well, that was like the donut diet. The donuts went in. So we tried to get an X-Lax sponsorship. Never got one, but anyway, fortunately I got far enough along in my career where I actually could buy a hamburger once in a while.
Congratulations on that. I want to hit you up one more time, Richard, because this is a great story about a rainy night in a Cadillac with a guy named Moose.
We were going to Denver, all racing in Denver, and I lived there in Dallas, and Moose was living in Baton Rouge. And I get on the plane. Well, he's on the Delta Airlines going to Denver. He's a truck operator. And we started drinking, and we drank, and we drank, and and then we get to Denver, where we're going to go out, and we meet these two girls and three girls, and we drank, and we drank, and we drank. And so the bar's closing down, so we're going to follow them to a party. And Moose always had to rent him a Cadillac, you know. So we rent this Cadillac. Well, the only problem was it was pouring down rain. I mean, just pouring down rain in Denver. So we get in this car and the windshield wipers are going. You can't even see where they're going. And we're trying to follow these girls. And I said, Moose, you're going to lose these girls. He said, no, I'm not going to lose them. He said, I can't see. So I just put my boots up on the windshield and pushed it. And it just pushed out on the ground. Just spun around out there like this, you know. And the windshield wipers were wiping the ash off. and we were drunk, you know. And Moose, I said, Moose, can you see now? He says, yeah, but he says, roll your window up, I'm getting wet.
Oh, man.
That's a true story.
Yeah. Thank you all for being here this morning. Obviously, these guys are full of stories, and we could have this thing go for 8 or 10 hours, and I would probably love every second of it. I know most of you have to get to your assigned booths at the show, but coming in about a week and a half, we're going to Pomona, California for the Auto Club Finals. We hope to see all of you there. You can go to NHRA.com to get your tickets. But one last time, please, let's hear it for our panel. Yes. Yes. And if you want more stories from Snake, you have to get his book. It is written by a mutual friend of ours that you guys co-wrote it, you and Alana. It is an amazing book that is so much more than just a bunch of dry statistics. It carries a lot of stories about Snake's life, a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. He touched on some of it today, but get the book and come see us at the NHRA display at 10 a.m. for an autograph session with all 4 of our panelists. So again, one more time, our panelists up here, Frank, Richard Tharp,